Today we are going to start our book number 2, chapter number 5, Through the Eyes of Travelers: Perception of Society from 10th century to the 17th century. This is our first chapter of the second book. Women and men have traveled in search of work to escape from natural disasters as traders, merchants, soldiers, etc. Those who visit or come to stay in a new land invariably encounter a world that is different in terms of landscape or physical environment, customs, etc. Some of them, exceptional, note them carefully in accounts, generally recording what they find unusual or unremarkable. In this chapter, we shall see how our knowledge of the past can be enriched through a consideration of description of social life provided by travelers who visited the subcontinent. Focusing on the accounts of three men, Al-Baruni, who came from Uzbekistan in 11th century, Ibn Battuta, who came from Morocco in northwest Africa in 14th century, and Frenchman Francis Bernier, who came in India in 17th century. So our focus would be on these three travelers and their perception of the Indian society. First, we are going to talk about Al-Baruni. Al-Baruni was born in 1973 in present-day Uzbekistan. He was well knowledgeable in various languages. He was captivated and taken to Ghazni and died there at the age of 70. He spent years in the company with the locals of Punjab and the priest and learned the Sanskrit language there and wrote a book named Kitabul Hind, which was dedicated to the Indian culture and society. The book was written in Arabic. It is simple, lucid, and voluminous. It talks about various subjects of India. The book has a distinctive structure. It begins with a question, the description based on the Sanskritic tradition, and the conclusion with a comparison with other cultures. He translated texts from Sanskrit, Pali, and Prakrit into Arabic. He was critical about the way text was written and wanted to be approved of everything that he wrote to be accurate. Al-Baruni's major description was on the caste system of India. He tried to explain the caste system by looking for parallels in the other society. Though he accepted the caste system, he disapproved the notion of pollution. He remarked that everything which falls into state of impurity strives and succeeds in regaining its original condition of purity. Therefore, the conception of social pollution intrinsic to the caste system, that means the concept of untouchability, was according to him contrary to the laws of nature. Al-Baruni's description of caste system was deeply influenced by his study of normative Sanskrit texts, which laid down the rules of governing the system from the point of view of the Brahmins. Let's move on to our next traveler, Ibn Battuta. By the time Ibn Battuta arrived in Delhi in the 14th century, the subcontinent was part of a global network of communication that stretched from China in east to northwest Africa and Europe in the west. Ibn Battuta came from Morocco and he was highly educated. He wrote a book, Rihla, which was written in Arabic and contains the rich details of social and cultural life in the subcontinent in the 14th century. He was appointed by Muhammad bin Tughlaq as a Qazi or judge at Delhi. He remained in this position for many years, then, due to misunderstanding, he was imprisoned. Once misunderstanding was cleared, he was restored to his imperial position. He was ordered by Muhammad bin Tughlaq in 1342 to proceed to China as the Sultan envoy to the Mongol rulers. He went to Malabar coast through Central Asia, then to Maldives, and later reached Sri Lanka, back to Malabar, Maldives, and resumed his mission to China. He was a globe-trotter. He was very observant and therefore wrote everything that he observed about the people, culture, beliefs, and values wherever he went. He also noted that traveling from one place to another took a long time, and therefore he always recorded all the essential that were required for a secure travel. Ibn Battuta himself traveled extensively through various lands, visited sacred shrines, spending time with learned men and rulers, often officiating as Qazi, and enjoyed the cosmopolitan culture of urban centers where people who spoke various types of languages existed, and with them he shared their ideas, information, and anecdotes. These included stories about men noted for their piety, kings who could be both cruel and generous, and about the life of ordinary men and women. Anything that was unfamiliar was particularly highlighted in order to ensure that the listener or the readers were suitably impressed by the account of a distant yet accessible land. Some of the best examples of Ibn Battuta's strategies of representation are evident in the ways in which he described the coconut and the paan, two kinds of plant produce that were completely unfamiliar to his audiences. Ibn Battuta described the Indian cities as well, as he found cities in the subcontinent full of exciting opportunities for those who had the necessary drive, resources, and skill. They were densely populated and prosper except for the occasional disruptions caused by wars and invasions. It appeared from Ibn Battuta's account that most cities had crowded streets and bright and colorful markets that were stacked with a wide variety of goods. Ibn Battuta described Delhi as a vast city with a great population, the largest in India. Daulatabad in Maharashtra was no less and easily rivaled Delhi in size according to Ibn Battuta. According to Ibn Battuta, the bazaars were not only places of economic transactions but also the hub of social and cultural activities. Most bazaars had a mosque and a temple, and in some of them spaces were marked for performances for dancers, singers, etc. While Ibn Battuta was not particularly concerned about explaining the prosperity of town, historians suggest that the towns derived significant portion of their wealth through the proportion of surplus from villages. Ibn Battuta found Indian agriculture very productive because the fertility of soil which allowed farmers cultivate two crops a year. He also noted that subcontinent was well integrated with inter-Asian network of trade and commerce, with India manufactures being in great demand in both West Asia and Southeast Asia, fetching huge profits in Indian textile, along with silk, muslin, satin, etc. The state evidently took special measures to encourage merchants. Almost all trade routes were well supplied with inns and guest houses. Ibn Battuta was amazed by the efficiency of postal system which allowed merchants to not only send information and remit credit across long distances but also to dispatch goods required at short notice. The postal system was so efficient that while it took 50 days to reach Delhi from Sindh, the news reports of spies would reach the Sultan through the postal system in just 5 days. Thus, he tells us the efficiency of the postal system during the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq in India.